Hello, this is Ryan Riccatelli with ASNews.net and the Kiteboarder magazine, and tonight I have Josh Mulcoy out of Santa Cruz, California, and Josh is on the line, and I just want to give him a second. Hey, Josh, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
Josh Mulcoy, pro surfer, pro kiteboarder, living in Santa Cruz, just trying to enjoy life.
Well, for those of you who don't know, I gave him a quick intro before the show, and Josh is a pro surfer, and he's an insane surfer. If you've seen photos of the guy, he kills it on a surfboard, behind a kite, and just on a surfboard alone. And actually, Tro has kind of told me some funny stories about you that you'll go out there and you'll paddle in from surfing, and you'll take the same board and go out and go kite surfing on it. So
Yeah.
Well, how did you get into kiteboarding?
Actually, Stretch had a video of a long time ago of Peter Tro kiteboarding down in Baja, and I watched it, and it was like he was tow surfing, and I was like, wow, that's really cool, I'd like to try that sometime. And then the place I surf up the coast by Waddell, I'd drive by and I'd see Dave Broom and the Shivels out there. So I was friends with Dave, and he basically took me under his wing and got me hooked up with a kite company, and they gave me some kites, and Dave, held my hand and made it happen. And it was just like a big water park. I watched those guys, and I just want to be involved in it. It's just a really cool thing.
Well, and you're still actively involved in the pro surfing world, and why don't you tell us a little bit about your pro surfing career?
Things have been pretty good. I've traveled a lot this year. I've been working on a video project with these people with 7 films, and I just competed in the cold water and started from the first round, which I just surfed 9 heats. I lost in the semis, and just been super busy. It's been a really, really good year. Surfing's doing really well, and I have really good support. And I'm right now is the best part of my life as far as the pro surfing thing goes. It's been good.
Well, and obviously you balance the two, pro kite surfer, pro surfer, and what do your pro surfer colleagues or friends say about you kite surfing?
It goes either way. Like I travel, like I said, a lot, and I'll be with the pro surfers, and I'll always have my stuff with me. So sometimes we'll be like, well, what's up with this? And maybe I won't get a kite when we're at a place, and I travel around a lot with the movie Peter and I did, a Soulfly video, and I'll show them that, and they'll be really surprised on what you can do riding waves with a kite. A lot of them, they go, oh yeah, you just dangle from these lines, and you jump and just dangle and hang there, and then they see what goes on with riding waves with the kite, and they get pretty inspired. It's just the outlet for them to get into it sometimes is a little hard because they don't know how or who to talk to about it. But once they see what's going on, they get pretty psyched. So it's good.
Well, and you talk about being on the road. Like, how much time do you spend on the road versus in Santa Cruz?
This year it was, I'd say, I pretty much would be gone for a month and then come home for like 3 weeks and then be gone for another month. Starting in probably late February, early March, I've been gone on the road. Like I said, a month and then home for 3 weeks and then a month and gone again. And yeah, I've been gone quite a bit this year.
Well, and who's supporting you? I mean, obviously you've got the best of both worlds. You got your surfing sponsors and your kite sponsors.
Yeah, I was really fortunate. I hooked up with Fox Clothing almost 2 years ago, and they've been really supportive, and I feel I've done a really good job for them. I've gotten all kinds of photos in the surf magazines as well as in kite magazines for them, and they've just been behind me. And anything that basically I want to do that is beneficial to both of us, where there's photographers and video guys going, that they make it happen for me. So right now my sponsors are incredible. The people that are backing me in surfing and kiting, I'm so stoked. So.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the gear you like to use. Like, what gear are you on right now? I mean, we talked about FlexiFlow, but what kites are you on?
Right now I'm using the Ions, and Adams as well, and kind of go back and forth with those. And I mean, they're a super, really stoked with those kites. I like the hybrid type kite. They work really well for me. They depower insane, and I basically want to ride a wave like I would surfing, and to depower it in those certain situations, it just works really well for me. And then you can gain the speed and whatever to make the sections as well.
Now, what about boards?
Actually, I've went through a lot of different board changes in the last 2 years. I was riding one of Petro's, the directionals that Stretch made, and then I got into the surfboard thing, and I've been kind of just doing all kinds of different sizes and whatnot. And for myself, is what I found works best is the same the same board I surf on, and it's a 6.0 squash tail, and I can go surf on it and then bring it in and go kite on it, and it feels exactly the same under my feet, which is good. And I've been working with Stretch and actually Surf Tech. They're getting ready to do a model with me, so I'll have a model coming out to them that everybody can get. But for me, it's perfect. Balances out both sports really well.
Well, we already got our lounge people chiming in, asking a question. They want to know what do you think the difference is between the Ion and the Atom?
They're pretty similar, but the Atom is a quicker turning kite, and it just feels a little lighter in the air. It's just a lighter kite, and a lot of it's the turning ability. It's just a little quicker. I could go either way, and there's not one that to me is better than the other one.
Well, yeah, the people in our lounge, they tune in every week, and most of them are just gearheads. They just want to know exactly what you're riding. So, sorry to get off on a tangent, but let's get back to the boards. Obviously you're talking about just going out and just riding a normal surfboard, and there's a big controversy between strapped and strapless. Like, how do you feel about that?
I think. For me, most of the time, I ride no straps. It's definitely really challenging, and people will ask me sometimes, why do you even do it? It just feels so much better to me when I connect turns. It's just the challenge of when it all links together, and it just feels really good. But I think there's times where straps are really important, and there is times where I still will break out the directional and ride that thing, and it's I don't know, it's just better when certain conditions arise, So to me, I'd rather ride with no straps, but I still see the whatever potential or whatever you need. Or just works better with straps.
Well, then, and also the next question would be, what about hooked versus unhooked?
That's a good question. I don't know, the unhooked thing. I've been kind of laughing about it because I've heard a couple of things, people kind of writing me off about that I ride hook. And the first time I heard it, I just really laughed and was like, well, that's the craziest thing I ever heard. And I guess our sport, people, because Felix and Ben, they ride unhooked, and people look up to those guys and they see them in the magazine so much, and so they follow the lead of what it is. And to me, whatever works best for the individual. There's so many different things in our sport, and it's just funny to me that somebody would say, "Oh yeah, you ride hooked in," so kind of write me off. And I'm like, it's crazy too. It's like if you want to write somebody off about how you hold a bar, it's like, well, what are we trying to do? We're trying to ride a wave like a surfer. So we're all kind of, in a way, we have this bar in our hand, and it's holding us up if we fall on our butts or whatever. It pulls you back up. It's like a cheater bar. And then it's just an interesting thing. But for me, it works really well to be hooked in, and I can really depower and utilize the FlexiFoil kites to their full potential, to what they're made to do. So it's an interesting one.
Yeah, that is an interesting controversy, and I think that's what kind of drives our sport. Is there always has to be this controversy, and I know it's a huge dichotomy. And personally, I ride hooked in. I try to unhook, but I'd end up losing my kite most of the time. So that's why I stay hooked in. But try to make it. I just try to have fun when I go out there. But another thing too is like, how do you feel about like backside hooked in kite surfing? And to me, that's just another one of those really, minutia little points that people kind of have issue with.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely. I don't know. I can see going backside. It's a little more difficult, and it could affect your performance a little more. Where frontside it's not so important, but backside I can see it a little more.
That got all these people barraging me with questions on my messenger, and this is kind of an interesting one. It's back onto the strapless. It says, do you think your solid surfing background helps you ride strapless?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Because realistically, to me, when I ride a wave, I want to ride a wave like I'm surfing. I don't want to be dragged by the kite going super fast or whatever. I want it to be like surf speed, and then the section arises to make that section utilizing the kite. So, to me, I'm so used to surfing without holding onto a bar, and just being able to, when you hit the lip without a bar or anything, it's so challenging surfing is, and then maybe have the bar, and it kind of actually helps you to stand up in a way. You can do crazy board slides and things and be holding onto the bar, and it stabilizes you. So, I think with just the background of surf, I've surfed pretty much my whole life, and to me it really helps. And a lot of times when I tow too, I don't use straps either, and I notice the kiting's helping that as well. You get going faster without straps, and just being able to be stable on your board. So I think all those sports, all of it together really helps.
Well, and with that said, like, what kind of traction do you use on your board?
I use wax.
Soul surfer, man. No deck pads. Wax.
Keep
it simple.
I'm a wax guy.
Yeah, I know, and that's another huge debate too. Is like, I think people just like to argue over little minutia points, but
yeah, they do.
Well, and you're from Santa Cruz now, and you talk about the Scheibels and Tro. Like, where do you usually ride up there?
Just up the coast, whatever, Waddell or Scott's, or there's reefs too that I've grown up surfing that I know when the right angle swell and the right tide that I'll take the track down or up the beach to go ride those waves, just because there's actually some misto reefs that are better than the waves that most people kite, and there's maybe only 1 or 2 times a year that they really get good, and just nice. You paddled around at a place your whole life, and then you get to go kite it, and it just opens up this arena that I never would have dreamed of. So.
Well, and who do you ride mostly with up there?
I ride pretty much by myself. There's, I'll see those guys up there, the Scheibels or Dave or Bruce. Bruce is probably one of the guys that I kite with the most, but a lot of times I'll go at Waddell or something. I'll go down the beach or up the beach and just kind of ride by myself and do my own thing.
Well, do the Scheibels give you shit because you don't fly a caution kite?
Yeah, I went through hell.
I'm sure you did, man. They definitely regulate that beach, don't they?
Yeah. Kiteboarding, I've dealt with more crap in kiteboarding as far as all that stuff than I ever dealt with anything in my life in surfing.
That's interesting to hear that.
But it's pretty funny. But we're all good friends. I like the Scheibels a lot, and I hope the same. They like me too. We had weird times, but
I spent about 10 days with them down in the Dominican Republic with the whole entourage, the kids and everybody. And I think you got to have a long goatee to be hanging out with those guys on a permanent basis. But no, they're very good guys and super fun to hang out with. And I'm sure they give you hell just as they give me hell every time I see them.
Yeah, they're good guys. Yeah, they're funny.
Well, and talk about like the Groms in your area. I know like Santa Cruz has put out a lot of really incredible surfers, but do you see like the accessibility for the Groms in kite surfing as like surfing?
No, it's definitely tougher because kiting is so expensive to get into it, and it's not it's not in Santa Cruz. It's up the coast where it really goes on. So it's not in your face where surfing is in your face when you're growing up in the town as a kid. And it's definitely hard. There's maybe only really one kid that's really doing it that I see, and he's doing really well, but it's definitely not not like surfing.
And actually, another good question is, obviously, I know that the Scheibels, like, I don't really think that many people would give those guys any grief on the water, but, I mean, what's it like being in Santa Cruz and being a kite surfer? Do you get respect, or do you have to take a little heat?
Not to sound weird, but, I mean, I've grown up in the water in Santa Cruz, and I've kited in places where there's been people surfing, and, I mean, not to be weird again, but I kind of feel like I earned my right to be wherever I am, and I mean I'm I grew up being a surfer first, so I don't see much of a problem.
Yeah, well, and obviously you definitely have proven yourself on as a surfer, and you probably know the whole crew, so it's a little bit different when you're an outsider trying to come in and poach one of those spots.
Yeah, it's definitely a little different. I think people, like, we get some wind down at Pleasure Point, and it's a big surfing arena, and sometimes kiters go out, and I've heard some of my friends complaining about it and bitching, but it's very rare that we get good wind and where there's a lot of people surfing too, so it's not so bad.
Well, we post questions all over the forums, and this is actually from Toby at Kite Forum, and I guess what he wanted to know is, I wanted to ask you if you had tried kite surfing and you stopped and then you came back, or if you started kiteboarding and then just was hooked and just kept on kiteboarding.
No, I started and I got so addicted, it was crazy. I found it was a weird time in my life where I've always loved surfing more than anything, but I was kind of getting a little burned out, and now that I can look back at this whole thing and realize what happened, and I got so into kiteboarding, it was ridiculous, and it was perfect, it was perfect for me because it kept me in the water, but still to this day, and then I came back to surf and really strong, and I still am kiting all the time, but I got really psyched on surfing again. So, I mean, I never quit kiting. I mean, it's a pretty hard one to quit, actually. So.
Well, and this is a question that's coming out of the lounge. What's your favorite place so far for surfing and kite surfing?
So far, I guess, probably Puerto Rico. Peter and I did a trip there. It's kind of a tough one. We went to a place in Baja, Riojo, so it's pretty insane too. There's really good surf there, and it's super fun for kiting. So, I mean, I still haven't been to that place where I was just getting barreled out of my mind surfing, and then I could grab the kite and go. I've been to Cabo Verde a few times, and I've gotten some good surf, like incredible surf there, and then not so good at kiting. And then last year I went, and the kiting was pretty average, but the surf wasn't that good. So I'd have to say Puerto Rico or Baja.
So you did a trip down to Abreojos with Tro.
Yeah.
I've done that once, man. Tro. I remember I was behind Chuck Patterson and Tro, and they drove like 90 miles an hour for the whole freaking 14 or whatever.
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah, and all I saw was about every maybe 2 hours they'd stop by the local like little bar and they'd buy a 6-pack of Modelo.
Oh shit. Uh-oh.
Yeah, so you could do the math, but
yeah, exactly.
Anyway, on another question, this is another question out of the lounge. What has been your most challenging kite surf session?
That's a tough one. I think that one happens quite a bit, actually. I don't know how to answer that one. I mean, we've had some big days up the coast with a lot of wind. I mean, we get so much wind here sometimes, and especially when you ride surfboard strapless, it gets pretty challenging.
Well, and for those of the listeners who don't know, I mean, if you don't know the Santa Cruz area and the waves up there, if you've ever seen some of the shots from Scott's that appeared in some of the magazine in Waddell Creek, I mean that place just gets gigantic and big, ledgy, gnarly surf, and actually you're one of the few and proud that actually go and charge those days.
Yeah, it's pretty challenging, definitely. So much wind too. It's crazy. It gets so bumpy.
Well, and you're also dealing with all the elements in the cold, so yeah, I guess that's true. Your own home break when it gets big would be probably pretty crazy stuff. One of your sponsors is Stretch Boards from Santa Cruz, and how far back does your relationship go with Stretch?
Forever. I don't know. It's like probably 15 years or so.
And has he always been your shaper?
I disappeared for a little while and then came back to him just for like a year or so. But yeah, he's been my shaper for the last like 10 years. Like every board I've had from him.
Well, and we talked a little bit about this. We talked about you riding a surfboard. Do you ever ride twin tips?
No, I don't ride those anymore. It all happened for me when probably like 3 years ago when I first started riding for last year, 2 years, whatever. I went on a trip with Peter and they filmed it, and I watched myself on a twin tip, and I watched Peter on his board, and pretty much stole one of Peter's boards, and then from then on out, I never went back to a twin tip.
Well, we talked a little bit about this earlier in the interview, and we were talking about boards, and, what makes a good board for the waves?
Well, for me personally, it's just what I surf on is exactly what works good for me kiting, because I put my feet on it so much that it's natural when it goes under my feet. I mean, everybody always has different opinions about everything, but for me, a 6.0 surfboard is perfect for me.
Well, here's a funny question coming out of the lounge. And have you ever tried Stretch's Pocket Rocket, which was designed for Aaron Hadlow?
Oh, yeah. I've ridden that board. Actually, that board's super fun. When I used to ride the Tro Directional a lot, I would ride that on days where there wasn't as much surf, and that board's super fun. It's actually like kind of skatey and just, I don't know, it's a fun board to have under your feet.
Well, here comes the tech questions. What size lines do you use in the waves?
That's a good one.
The stock ones, probably, huh?
Yeah, exactly. That's what they are.
All right, there you go. you sound like you sound like me when it comes to kites and equipment. I pretty much just ride it right out of the bag, and I I tune it obviously, but I don't really spend too much time teching out on the gear. And it's funny because I know a lot of kiteboarders, they spend a lot of time just really getting into the different gear, and so every week I just riddle the guests with just these technical questions. And here's another one. It's like, or what do you prefer, a 3-fin or a 4-fin board?
Actually, well, it depends on that one. If I'm riding the Tro Directional, the 4-fin is insane, because a lot of that times when I'm riding that board, it's like a side-off condition, and I'm flying down the line, and I think the 4-fin just breaks easier, so you can go back up the face. But as far as a surfboard, for me, it's really all about the thruster. That's what I surf on, so I go with that. But the 4-fins work really well. I definitely see their place, and they're definitely being improved by all kinds of good surfers, amazing surfers right now. So. Well,
there's a lounge user who wants to know how should a non-surfer go about choosing a board? Now I really stumped you.
That's a tough one. Ask a lot of questions. Talk to your friends, and it's a tough question. I don't really want to answer that one.
No, I think the best way for us to answer that, and not to put you on the spot, Josh, but is if you don't know what you want, go to your shop and see if you can't demo a board. Try them all out, man. Try a twin tip out, try a directional out, try a surfboard out, and
exactly.
See what works best for you, and most importantly, see what you have the most amount of fun on. I see a lot of guys in my local area. Yeah, they ride a surfboard, but they don't look like they're having a lot of fun on it.
Yeah, that's one thing I think about our sport is like I just hear this about the hooked unhooked thing, and it makes me wonder. I'm like, why do we do this? It's to have fun, and I think about them all. If I stay on the beach and I watch a guy rip a wave on a twin tip, I'm like, wow, that guy's ripping. I don't go, oh, that guy's on a twin tip. That's weak. He's not that good. Like, I think people just need to realize that, like, what we do it for fun, and don't get caught up in, oh, I need a surfboard, or I need this, or, just go out and have a good time and find out what works for you.
I think that's the best attitude, and actually it seems like the guys who are the most carefree and have the most fun keep that attitude. They ride whatever kite that their sponsor tells them to ride, and they get out there and they have fun and they make the best of it,
Yeah, exactly. That's why we do it.
Well, here's another question. It comes out of Ontario, and I know we've talked about this, but I'll let you address it straight on. Starkey from Ontario says that he has always seen pictures of you on wave-specific directional kiteboards and never on a traditional surfboard. He wants to know why you ride a kiteboard over a style of board you are already so comfortable on.
I think that kind of goes back to the thing like I was saying where I went through all kinds of different boards, and I started using the Tro directional, and I rode it. I rode it for quite a while, and I think a lot of photos came out from that board. And this last probably year and a half, I really dialed in the surfboard thing for myself, and that's what I've been putting my feet on since then. So, I mean, I'm sure that there's going to be a lot more photos coming out with just strapless surfboard stuff.
Well, we've talked a lot about, the whole surfing element of our sport, and, how do you feel about some of these recent kite surfing contests like the one in Mauritius?
I'm super stoked. I think it's great for the sport, and I think that stuff like that needs to go on where they need to have events like surf events. There was always events where it was like there was a wave event and there's only a few of them, and then you had to jump. Like I always thought that even if the sponsors weren't behind it, if you would get the best guys in the world together and just to make the event happen, that people, all the sponsors and everybody's going to follow. I've seen it in surfing where they started the air shows, and it was just a small little thing, and these certain people would show up, and then it graduated into this big thing where they got sponsors behind it, and everybody started making money. And I mean, especially it's good with all these guys pushing the limits with riding waves. That it's just, it's bringing more interest into the sport. I'm super stoked on it.
Well, it'd be cool to see you in some of these contests, and obviously I know that contest was an invitational, but hopefully in the next year or two we can see some more of these contests. Do you think that'll interfere with your pro surfing career?
No, I mean I definitely make time to do those events. I'm super into kiteboarding and anything stuff like that. I definitely would be into.
Well, here's another question that's coming out of the lounge. It says, would you ever ride sea kites again, or are you sold totally on the bows?
Pretty much the Flexi, the hybrid kites that I have right now, how I want to ride waves and what I want to do, I can't see myself going back and riding the sea kites. I'm so stoked on just being able to depower the kite and ride the wave, and the kite just sits there, and I don't really even have to think about it, and it just, I don't know, it works really well. I mean, it just made it all that much even easier, because there's so many things in kiting where I want to do something, and surfing I'd be able to do it, and the kite's over here or there, and with these new kites, it's like I don't even think about it. I just basically am surfing. So.
Well, and here's another question. Do you tune your kites any special way, or do you just pretty much ride them stock standard?
Yeah, I'm really a simple person, and I take it out of the bag and take the bar out of the packaging and just hook it all up. And FlexiFoil tunes their kites to be, what they are is what they should be. So I just ride them as is.
All right. Well, you know what? Here's another one. Here's another question. Gosh, the technical questions that people come up with crack me up. Like, when you are riding straps, what kind of straps do you ride?
That's a good question. I ride Stretch has all different varieties of straps, and I just use what he has. They're just pretty standard, wider straps, and they're pretty hard, so they stay open, and I get my feet in and out super easy when I have to jive.
So, here's a personal question for me. So when you're just traveling around, you don't really take a kite-specific board. You just bring your surfboard and your kite.
Yeah, I just bring surfboard and a kite. And that's a good thing about these kites, too, and now is that you don't have to bring so many. I can just bring a few, and it's just easy. I can wrap my surfboards up in a kite, and it helps to save my surfboard from the travel. And it's just simple now. Whereas before, I was crazy all the gear I'd have to lug around, So that's another really big benefit about these new kites.
So you never were intrigued by windsurfing. You just kind of got the kiteboarding bug and just kind of went with it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting. Well, hey, I really appreciate your time today. I want to give you a chance to, where can our listeners find out more about you?
Just internet, whatever. Just like Vans, Shoes has stuff on me. Flexi Foil has stuff. Fox Clothing, and Stretch probably has a thing too. So just my sponsors and all that.
And basically, what's in your travel plans for the next few months?
I hope I'm going to be home for the next 2 months until February, and then I'm going to go to Indonesia, and then from there Australia, and I don't know. There's a lot of things this year got going on.
The life of a pro surfer and pro kite surfer, and do you ever get a chance to ride with Aaron Hadlow or any of the European Flexifoil guys?
Yeah, I've ridden with Aaron a few times. Pretty amazing. When I've been out with him when it's been pretty much flat for waves, and I pretty much just figure I go sit on the beach and watch.
Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff. What do you think about the freestyle end of kiteboarding?
It's definitely not for me, but what those guys do is so impressive, and like I said, I like to watch, and you can learn things from what they're doing too as well, to try to do on the waves. So it's impressive.
Well, Josh, thanks for coming on the show, and I really appreciate your time today. I know everybody in the lounge was stoked to have you on. It's always cool to talk to a guy who's as credible as you, and I think you definitely give our sport a lot of credibility. I know I've seen a lot of photos of you kite surfing and surfing, and you definitely have earned the respect amongst the kiteboarding community. So, hey. If you need anything, or if you ever in town here in Texas, man, you should come by and check out some of this Texas surf that we have here. I think you might be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, man, and this podcast will go out tomorrow, and actually, it's kind of cool because we get about 10,000 downloads a week, and all these people from around the world, goes out to 136 countries. They download it, and they either listen to it in their commute to work, and it's crazy on their plane flights. It's nuts, man. I never really thought that many people would actually listen to what we're talking about, but yeah, man. So I think it's going to be cool. I think it's going to. I think our listeners will be really stoked to hear what you had to say.
Yeah, that's cool. I really appreciate it.
Well, right on, man. Do you want to throw any shouts out to anybody?
I just really like to say thanks to Stretch for getting me involved in the kiting, and most of all, Peter Tro. He's basically took me under his wing and made a lot of this possible. So without him, he's just a really insane guy, and I appreciate everything he's done.
Well, right on, man. Well, hopefully we can get you back on the show sometime in this upcoming year, and we'll touch base with you later.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thanks a lot, Josh. I'll talk to you later.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye.
Well, folks, that concludes podcast number 58, Josh Mulcoy. Obviously, you see that Josh is pretty soft-spoken and very humble, and that's what we kind of find in the sport. A lot of the guys who are just really passionate about the sport, who don't really care about the politics or anything other than just the riding end of it, and Josh, his interview just pretty much exemplifies that fact. So anyway, I really appreciate everybody tuning into the lounge and all the questions that everybody asked. Thanks to the support staff as well at cherrytap.com, and we'll be getting back with you next week, and we got another great show lined up, and we'll talk to you soon.